Well, here we are again with the word wokery. So many people seem to be hypnotised by this word, and as soon as they hear it, they're instantly against whatever minority group is being singled out this time. And yet again, we're talking about trans women who are extremely vulnerable members of society. They're not more of a threat to anybody than non-trans women. So why are we talking about them? The reason why we're talking about them is because actually when Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson came into government, they carried out some research and they found out that the best issues to distract the public from things that are really going wrong in society were immigration and the trans issue. And so they keep using it as a dog whistle to try and bash trans people, bash LGBTQ people, and take us away from the things we should be talking about this week, which is hospital funding, people having their operations cancelled, operations being botched, staff going on strike. We're not talking about those things. No, we're talking about less than 0.5% of the population might one day be in a ward and might make someone feel uncomfortable.
When you look at the statistics, Lizzie, it is an unusual thing for our Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, when our NHS is in the state that it is in, to focus on.
Yes, I agree, and I do agree what you've said as well, but I do feel that there feels to be a war on women, that they are being sidelined. And I do think it's important that women have their own privacy in hospitals. And it's also important that, you know, men and women are different. If you feed a man beetroot, it lowers their blood pressure. There are many different things scientifically and medically that are different if you have them on the ward. And you also want women to feel like they've got their own dignity if they're on the ward. They don't want to be around, if you were to ask them, with trans women on a ward. And the trans community need to be treated with care and understanding. Yes, they do. But also women need to be asked. And this is the thing now. It really does feel like women are being sidelined.
But in this conversation, it's always women feel are being sidelined. Funnily enough, the women I know actually have no issue at all with being on a hospital ward with a trans woman. In fact, they'd rather be in a bed next to a trans woman who is kind and friendly and chatty and calm than in a bed next to a non-trans woman who is aggressive and, you know, maybe has psychological issues. So the question isn't actually whether the trans woman is more of a threat or less of a threat. The question is, why are we singling out trans people in this situation? What we're talking about is making people feel safe when they're in hospital.
OK, I want to bring in another voice now. This is trans right campaigner Heather Herbert. Heather, thank you very much for joining us, first of all, on this debate, on this conversation. What do you think about these proposals that the Health Secretary's brought forward?
Well, good morning. First of all, I'd like to speak to the trans community and calm any fears. These proposals would go, in my opinion, against the Equality Act, and so it's just hot air from the Health Secretary. There's no way they will be able to implement this. Secondly, on the issue itself, there were 20,000 attacks in hospitals, mostly against staff by patients last year. None of those attacks involved trans people. This is we've heard this week from the Conservative Party conference. We have heard lies about meat tax, lies about 7 bins. We've heard conspiracy theories about 15-minute cities, meaning that councils will stop you going outside. The Conservative Party is looking more and more like a fringe political party. You know, those parties that get like 100 votes at an election. We should be focusing on the cost of living crisis. We should be focusing on things that really affect people's day-to-day lives.
Heather, I hear what you're saying. You think this is like the sparkly object tactic. It's trying to distract people from the real issues. But I suppose there are a large swathe or a swathe of the population that are a little bit worried that women's rights have been are being reduced, are being dissolved in favour of trans rights. I mean, when you look at language used around cervical cancer, for example, it was taken off the NHS website, the use of the word women, and it was individuals with cervix. And now it's women and individuals with cervix. The same cannot be said when we look at prostate cancer. It doesn't say men and those with prostates. What is the difference there? Because there does seem to be a slight change in how we use language when it comes to men and women, trans men and trans women. I agree. It should say men and people with prostates.
That would make much more sense. So that would be a correct definition of the people who are at risk of prostate cancer.
So why
likewise, people who with cervixes are at risk of cervix cancer.
But why is there that difference?
You would have to ask the NHS that. I would be campaigning for inclusive language across the board.
So why do you think then that Steve Barclay has brought this up as an issue, and what impact is it going to have on the trans community?
Why have they brought it up? Simply because the polls are really bad for the Conservatives at the minute, and the cost of living crisis is getting no better, and they need something to distract to the electorate, to fool people, to make people they think people are dumb, and they think that people are going to fall for this and think that this is a more important issue than food on their tables. And the effect on the trans community in general, it's just going to provoke fear. It's going to make more and more people worried about going to hospital. It's going to make more and more people scared of the environment that they live in. And it's going to increase hate crimes. We've seen hate crimes against the whole LGBTQ community rise year on year over the last few years.